Hi, everyone. I'm Bailey Brown with the Eagle newspaper. I'm joined today by Outgoing Mayor, College Station Mayor Karl Mooney. Sir, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you being here.
Glad to be here.
To just start off a little bit, can you take me back? Did you always know from a young age you wanted to be involved in local government, or did you know this is where your life would take you down the
You
road?
know, Bailey, I never really thought that I would be a mayor anywhere. However, there was a gentleman who, when I was very young and walking to school, and I would pass by his house every day, had a nice little white picket fence in front, and he was always outside doing some work. And I was walking by one day and I saw some flowers that he had, and I commented to him how pretty his flowers were. And he came over and he talked to me. His name was Pierre Exaros, um, and this was 1956.
Wow.
All right,
How old were you then, if you don't mind me
6
asking?
years old.
You're 6. Okay.
So I was walking to first grade,
Mhm.
all right, and so we ended up having a pleasant little conversation. And that continued on. He would see me walking by and he would say, "Hey, Carl, how are you doing today?" And he might ask me about some courses, how are you doing in school, that kind of thing. And we got to know a little bit about each other. And one night we were sitting at home, my brother and two sisters and I, along with my parents. And, I just happened to say, um, I was talking to Mr. Exaros on the way home from school today. And my father, who was a colonel in the Army, looked at me like, "You're lying." And I said, he said, "Mr. Exaros?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Pierre Exaros?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you know who he is?" And I said, "No, he's Mr. Exaros." He said, "He's the mayor." And I thought, wow, a mayor who would stop and talk to me. And that stuck with me. Um, and it wasn't so much about him being mayor, it was how you treat people. And I have always thought of him whenever I meet someone new, or particularly if I see someone who's doesn't look like they're having the best of days. How to approach them, how to just talk. And I think as time moved on and people saw that that's how I am, um, people started to say things like, "Wow, you should do this or you should do that." And when I happened to be here in 1989 is when I came to College Station. I was at a luncheon, and some people had started to have a conversation. I was associate athletic director at the time at A&M, and they started talking about wastewater. Not the best topic at lunch, but nonetheless, it was one we were having. And somebody made some comments, and I thought, well, I know something about that because for my master's degree, I had focused on urban education, but my minor was in urban planning and design. And so I made a few comments. And this one gentleman looked at me and said, "Where did you get your degree in urban planning?" And I said, "Well, it's just a minor." And he said, "Oh, well, guess what? You know more about this than many of us do." And I said, "Okay." And so at the next breath, he said, "We have an opening on planning and zoning. Uh, would you consider serving?" Well, the host of that luncheon, we were at his house, Bill Irwin, he said, "Oh, yeah, he'll serve." And
You
three
were
weeks later,
voluntold.
yeah, I was voluntold. 3 weeks later, I got a call from City Hall, and they said, "You've been nominated to be on planning and zoning. Do you accept?" And I said, "Sure." So that started it. And it's just been a progression um, over and over again. One thing leads to another. You learn so much. Uh, for folks who are considering running, uh, make sure that you have a good idea of all of the issues that you possibly can absorb. because to just run and only have one thing in mind, you'll find you're going to be hard-pressed to truly be of service to your city.
Right. And speaking of service, that segues right into my next question. In your time as mayor since you were elected in 2016, what do you feel have been your greatest achievements for the citizens of College Station?
As you do certain things, that is the most important thing of the moment. But then there's also other things that come up. While I was on city council, it became very clear to us through my interaction with the police force, and having had been a police officer myself in New Jersey before ever coming here, it was real clear to me that we were having an issue. Our town was growing, our police force was growing, yet the space they were occupying wasn't growing to meet their needs. And it was even jeopardizing our ability to truly serve our citizens as well as we should be. And so I became aware of, and during my campaign, I said, yes, we are going to build a new police headquarters during my time as mayor. Also, occupying, particularly during my first term, the city hall, and greeting things like mice and lizards late at night, and walking out and finding that the floor was soggy because the roof was leaking, also caused me to then realize that, okay, the next big thing is City Hall.
That's right.
And not just a city hall that would serve us for today, but that would serve us for many years to come, decades to come. And so those were the big things that happened. But then something happened in October of my final year of my first term, October 10th to be precise. I was at a Texas Municipal League meeting. I had just spoken that afternoon. And the Astros were playing in the World Series. And so because the conference was going to end the next morning, as soon as I was done having dinner, I went back to my hotel room and started packing because Aggies were going to play Alabama that Saturday. So I needed to get home because we were going to have a full house. Well, the Astros, Altuve and Brantley hit home runs back to back. And knowing my wife, Laura, was a true Astros fan, and that she would have the Astros game on in every room, I texted her, but she didn't reply. And I thought, that's strange. Well, within short order, my phone rang, and there were knocks on my door. Laura had passed away from a heart attack. That kind of event really alters anything you're thinking about doing or whatever. And through that experience, I became aware of the dilemma that we have here in the Brazos Valley with regards to not having a medical examiner's office, and that our detectives and our sworn officers have to accompany a body of the deceased to Austin,
Right.
and have to stay there. And that takes them off the street, but most importantly, the delay, because it's Travis County, and Travis County is doing what they have to do. They first have to serve their citizens. It causes a lengthy delay. And somewhat embarrassingly, I received Laura's death certificate within 3 months. All right. But as soon as I started speaking up about this, I started to hear from families. 6 months, 9 months, a year, 18 months.
My goodness.
All right. And that's just not acceptable. I had one family that I talked directly to who lives here locally. All right. They had lost their home. They had lost their vehicle, all right, which means that the mom was having difficulty being employed because she couldn't get to and from work. And so it became incumbent upon me, I felt, that with the new information and new knowledge that I had, that we had to push for a medical examiner's office here. It's not as easy as just saying we're going to do that. One, it's expensive.
Right.
Two, there are also some limitations and restrictions that the state imposes on you and your area. They want you to have a population of 500,000. Well, we're not quite there. However, if it is a teaching component of a university, you can have one, as long as it's co-sponsored by the university, still has to be owned by the county.
Right.
And so I approached a number of folks through the Intergovernment Council that I was chair of at the time, approached Judge Peters, and this is something that had been talked about for years, but because of its expense, it was put on the back burner. Well, then, within 5 months of Laura's passing, COVID hits. And now, once again, everything shifts. And so I start getting data and start meeting with the university and with Mayor Nelson as well. And we are on the air multiple times every week, radio, television. We're interviewed by the Eagle, just because the initial numbers were scary.
Right.
I mean, if we did not do something to get COVID in check here, it would have been disastrous to our economy, all right? But most importantly, it would have been disastrous in the loss of life that we would have experienced. And so we started to take some steps. I took the first step in requiring masks. Some people didn't like that. But it's funny, you know, we not only slowed down the spread of COVID, but we also slowed down dramatically the flu. All right? And the combination of the flu and COVID would be deadly. All right? And so I was at a meeting earlier this week, and somebody brought that up. And they said, you know, that was the starting point, because within a day or two after I declared that masks would be mandatory in College Station, Mayor Nelson and Judge Peters on the same day also made that mandate. And we also received a visit from Dr. Birx, who was then President Trump's director for the effort to fight COVID. And she came here and she wanted to know, how is it that the university was able to keep working, all right, in a different way, of course. But, and how is it that our economy, while it went down, it didn't go precipitously down, all right? And then, and now, I mean, we're back up and we've surpassed, all right? And I think what happened was people saw a level of confidence in College Station and its economy. Great example is Costco. Costco would have turned its back, and actually did turn its back, on College Station previously. But Costco, like some other companies, took a look at College Station and said, wait a minute, something's going on there.
Right.
Because when we look at the demographics that we get from the federal government, it says the per capita income in College Station is no more than $36,000. But how can that be? Right. Well, it's because you've got students who get figured into the mix, and the students have zero income. But as we lovingly refer to it in these parts, you've got the economic factor of parents' plastic.
There you
All
go.
right? And that's what really helps carry the day. And with that means those students were able to stay in school. They were able to purchase all the equipment they needed to continue to attend class virtually. All right? And, you know, we kept moving on, not as such a fast pace as we had previously. But we kept moving on. And so companies like Costco said, you know what, they don't dip down
Right.
as far as other places, and they may not grow as fast as some other places, but they're steady climbers.
That's right.
And so Costco came here. And pretty soon, that property between Costco and Christ Church, 28 acres, that's going to be sold as well to another developer. Because once you get a big regional sales company like that to come into your town, others start taking a look. They want to
Sure
know,
do.
what is it that they know that we didn't? Right? And so what are we missing out on? And they see College Station as a great place to come. So I'm sorry I've given you a very long answer
That's what I was
to
looking
the
for.
question. But to say that there was one thing that I could hang my hat on, so to speak, everything had a time.
Right.
You know, everything had a purpose at that time. And now the purpose is the medical center, which is huge. But even as last night, as you know, because you were there, now we're moving on with a recreation center and quite possibly a YMCA that runs it or a YMCA that's freestanding. But that's exciting as well because, again, it's what our citizens need, the kind of services that they need to sustain the quality of life that we like to brag about here in College Station.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. That's exactly what I was looking for. And as you were reflecting, have you ever thought to yourself, or do you wish you had done anything differently?
You know, I wish I had been a little bit more knowledgeable on all the aspects of COVID, but
We couldn't have
in
known.
thinking about that,
Right.
we didn't know.
Right.
When we hit March of 2020, oh my goodness, we had very little information to go on. And then you started to get variants, and each variant has been different from another.
Yeah.
Just on the radio this morning, I heard another variant. And it's kind of scary because, as one doctor said to me, he said, this might be the first smart virus that we're dealing with because it's able to change itself, alter itself in so many different ways. You know, we're going to have to watch it. You know, you hear about some other countries, China, for example, that is very strict still with COVID. And we're not. And we're concerned about our economy. But sometimes I have to say, wait a minute. Economy or living? Which is the first thing that we should be focused on?
Right. No, it's a very pointed question and one that I'm sure people may think of, but when you voice it and you really have to implement it as a mayor can be a little difficult. And
Right,
you did what you had to do. Yeah.
And some people, like I said, they did not care for that. You know, I've been in HEB, for example, and caught an earful a few times. But you just have to go like, okay, I understand it's your opinion.
Right.
We may not disagree on this, but trust me, I am doing what I think is in the best interest of the city.
Right. Absolutely. Well, sir, what's next for you in this next chapter?
Well, again, as you were there last night, you heard about the effort to bring a YMCA. It's been, goodness, I started that back when I was on council, so it's been about a 12-year effort. We have so many new people moving into our community. Folks who come from communities where they have recreation centers, where they have YMCAs. And so when they get here, they go, well, where do we go? What can we do? What's the family recreation center? Where is it? Sorry, we don't have one. We need to change that. And I think the city council at our last meeting said, yes, we agree. We need a recreation center. How it's run, what programs it has, that's still way up in the air. Where it's located is
Right.
still up in the air. There are changing things going on. You've got, just yesterday, we heard from A&M about esports. Goodness gracious, who would have ever thought about esports and having an esports stadium
Right.
here? All right, there's none in Houston, there's none in Dallas-Fort Worth, or Austin, or San Antonio. And here we are right in the middle of that triangle. All right. If you take a look at some of the esports stadiums that exist, particularly in California, you'll see that they draw huge numbers of people. And some of those tournaments go on for days.
That's right.
I mean, and
Yeah.
there's no, it's not, you can't set your clock by it because there's people participating from all over the world, and it all comes right down to that location. Crazy stuff. I don't know enough about it to really be an expert.
Me either.
All I've seen are pictures and
Yeah.
some of the young people that I see at the university who've said, "Aren't you the mayor?" I said, "Yeah." "Wow, this esports thing is really something." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, maybe it is." So we'll just have to wait and see. But with the university behind it, I know it will be state of the art. And I think it's also great because we're going to see the mall itself get revitalized. You're going to have folks who are playing in a game, and maybe part of their team is playing, and they can go walk the mall and go to the food court or whatever, or any of the restaurants that are surrounding that area. So it's exciting to see that kind of thing coming.
And speaking of A&M, are you still gonna?
Yeah, I'm still there for a while at least. Anyway,
Okay.
I'll still continue to work at A&M. Thank goodness I have that. I love working with students, and the nature of the work that I do is helping students find what it is they want to do. Sometimes they have no clue when they first come to the university, or maybe they get into a major and they find out, not for me. I need to find something else. And so that's rewarding. And I've had, even just this week, I've had several experiences like that. Of course, their parents come in thinking they're going to speak to an academic advisor who's in their 20s or 30s, and then they see me, and it's like, oh crap, I've got to talk to my parent.
Right, there you go. Yeah.
But it's all good.
Good.
It's all good.
Any fun adventures?
Well, I do
Anything?
collect model trains, and I've been fortunate. A lady who was a friend of my wife's and who also taught my now 31-year-old daughter, taught her fourth grade.
Oh.
We got married, and out of all of that, I've now picked up some grandkids, and I've got a new grandson from my son.
Oh, congratulations.
And so a little bit of travel to spend time with the grandkids.
Good.
And their parents if they want to tag along.
There you go.
But
Good.
that kind of thing, and then we'll see. Folks have come up and asked me not to veer too far away from the public elected official life.
Gotcha.
And so, without saying where or what that could be, I'll watch. I am 72, and so I don't want to be an elected official. I won't say who, but people wonder whether or not I've got all my mental faculties about me when I make statements and that sort of thing.
Goodness.
But I'll be careful.
Good.
And
on
watch.
speaking off of that, what are you hoping for with our next mayor, and any words of advice?
Well, I think John is a great guy. I think the citizens are very fortunate to have someone with the level of experience that he has, not just in elected office, but he's also a great economist. He understands the economy forwards and backwards, and I think he will guide the city appropriately. I'm kind of glad he doesn't have to worry about a new police headquarters or a new city hall, because those things are done.
Right,
So
right.
he can focus on programs and needs in other areas. The citizens just passed a bond for a 7th fire station in South College Station, so that will be on his watch, I'm sure. But I'm very confident that John will be an exemplary mayor.
Any advice for him?
Just focus on developing consensus. That's one of the hardest things to do. As a council member, you can speak up and say whatever you want whenever you want to. But as mayor, and this was pointed out by Dr. Crompton, who had his last meeting with us, and he was very kind, and he didn't need to be that kind. But he pointed out that I was always the last to speak, and that whenever I spoke, particularly if it was on a contentious item, that I would draw comments that I had heard from each of the other council members.
Right.
And try to develop that consensus first. Because as mayor, it cannot be about you.
Right.
If it is about you, then there's something wrong. You need to be getting everyone to share their ideas and to come up with the best solution that's in the best interest of the citizens.
Very well said. Well, Mayor Mooney, thank you so much. And I know the citizens of College Station, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us and for your time. And best of luck to you in your new adventures.
Well, thank you. All right.
Thank you.